Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're traveling back to a late afternoon in Frankfurt, Germany. The year is 1974, and the stage is set for an absolutely monumental World Cup group stage clash. On one side, you've got the reigning world champions, Brazil. On the other, a highly organized, completely fearless Scotland team. It's a matchup that promises drama, but what actually unfolded on that pitch, well, it defied everyone's expectations.
When you hear a football match ended in a 0-0 draw, your first instinct might be to think it was a slow, cautious, maybe even entirely boring affair. But, okay, let's dive into this, because we are going to bust that myth wide open today. We're going to break down exactly why this goalless draw between Brazil and Scotland was a breathtaking, edge-of-your-seat spectacle that kept fans totally captivated from the very first whistle to the last.
Part 1. Champions and the Challengers.
This was your classic David versus Goliath dynamic, but definitely with a twist. On one side, we have Brazil. They're the defending 1970 world champions, an incredible side that had already won the tournament 3 times. But, they'd suffered quite a few retirements from that legendary 1970 squad, and they actually came into this match desperate to score, having shockingly drawn their opening game against Yugoslavia 0-0. They absolutely needed to exert their authority. Then on the flip side, we have Scotland. Far from being intimidated, Scotland was sitting comfortably at the top of the group after beating tournament debutant Zaire 2-0. They were highly regimented, remarkably physical, and fully prepared to go toe-to-toe with the footballing giants.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is what these teams were actually fighting for. Up until this tournament, teams fought for the Jules Rimet Cup. But because Brazil had won it for a 3rd time in 1970, they were actually allowed to keep it permanently. So FIFA had to commission a brand new official trophy just for this 1974 tournament, the FIFA World Cup trophy. Brazil was looking to prove they could hold on to this new one too, while Scotland was out to prove that the kings of football could, in fact, bleed.
Part 2. A brutal clash of styles. To give you a quick idea of the 1970s football standards on display here, just look at this quote from the match commentary. The sides have both kicked lumps out of each other. It's a bit of dry humor, sure, but it perfectly summarizes the sheer, unadulterated physicality of the match. Neither side was willing to give an inch, and the tackles were literally flying in thick and fast.
This clash was incredibly apparent in their tactics. On one hand, you had that traditional Brazilian flair. You had Rivellino firing off heavily curled shots and beautiful flowing passing moves, orchestrated by players like the 25-year-old Paulo César. But over on the other side, you had pure Scottish grit. Scotland organized themselves in a remarkably regimented fashion at the back, constantly neutralizing those traditional Brazilian attacks. And going forward, they relied heavily on Joe Jordan, who acted as a massive aerial threat from the very opening minutes, forcing Brazil's defense to constantly retreat and just clear the ball in a panic.
The physical toll of Scotland's tactical discipline was super obvious. There were highly aggressive tackles constantly breaking up the play. Brazil's Rivellino actually picked up a yellow card for a big foul. But the moment that really stands out is when Scotland's Billy Bremner committed a harsh, late foul right in front of the referee. He was incredibly lucky to stay on the pitch. Why? Well, because the referee had a brand new option in this tournament, to first show a player a yellow card and then send them off if they deemed their behavior unacceptable. Bremner totally dodged a bullet there, and the physical battle just raged on.
Part 3. Battle of the Goalkeepers. The commentary described the game perfectly here. A real penalty box to penalty box performance. This was absolutely relentless. The ball was swinging wildly from one end of the pitch to the exact opposite end. Just as Brazil would mount a terrifying attack, Scotland would clear it and immediately launch a counterstrike, constantly testing the defensive lines of both teams.
And standing in those penalty boxes were 2 absolute walls. For Brazil, you had Emerson Leão throwing himself across the goal mouth to pull off these massive diving stops. And for Scotland, you had Leeds United's David Harvey producing incredible point-blank reaction saves. These two were like immovable objects who completely dominated their respective areas. They simply refused to let a single shot slip past them.
And this brilliantly illustrates how crucial David Harvey was in keeping Scotland alive during Brazil's early onslaught. First, he managed to read and deny a heavily curled shot from Rivellino that was just loaded with power. Then, he produced a brilliant reaction save, an absolute world-class effort to tip a thunderous volley from Molino right onto the crossbar. Without Harvey's heroics, Brazil for sure would have been up by a goal or 2 before halftime.
Part 4. Missiles and near misses.
Listen to this description of a shot from Scotland's Peter Lorimer. An absolute missile, saving Brazil's bacon.
Lorimer unleashed this incredibly powerful, bending long-range strike that was heading right for the top corner. It took a desperate, match-saving stop from Leao, forcing the ball away to keep Brazil in the tournament. You can imagine the Scottish fans in Frankfurt making their voices heard as the pressure just kept mounting.
Just look at how rapidly the chances escalated in the second half. 46th minute, David Hay drives a hard distance shot that Leon has to tip over. 55th minute, Brazil breaks through, but Rivellino's diving header is denied by Harvey. 65th minute, we get that absolute rocket from Lorimer that Leon saves. And then, in the 75th minute, Brazil's Carpegiani takes the ball down, only for a rushing David Harvey to fly off his line and produce a wonderful save. The sheer volume of high-quality, end-to-end chances here is staggering. The fact that the scoreline remained 0-0 at this point was nothing short of a miracle.
Then came the ultimate moment. The ball is crossed in, Joe Jordan wins the first header, the Brazilian goalkeeper spills it, the ball is loose, Billy Bremner is right there, the goal is gaping, and he puts his header just inches wide of the post. Bremner literally couldn't believe it. So the crucial point is, this was Scotland's golden opportunity to completely dethrone the world champions, and it agonizingly slipped away.
Part 5. The tense, goalless aftermath.
In the very last minute of the game, Brazil had one final chance to steal the victory. Paulo Cesar gets a shot away, it takes a massive deflection right off Billy Bremner in the Scottish wall, and it goes agonizingly close to the net with the goalkeeper having to just watch it all the way. It was a hard-stopping final second that left absolutely everyone breathless.
And then, the final whistle blew. As the commentary officially concluded, after an almighty battle here in Frankfurt, it's finished, world champions Brazil 0, Scotland 0. That quote perfectly summarizes the immense, draining, physical effort exerted by both sets of players. I mean, they had given everything.
So, what was the fallout of this epic stalemate? Well, Scotland kept their fate entirely in their own hands. They played brilliantly and just needed a good result against the group leader Yugoslavia to advance. But look at Brazil. The defending champions were left in a highly precarious position. They were completely goal-starved and heading into their final match desperate to score as many goals as humanly possible against Zaire just to survive the group stage.
Which leaves us with this provocative thought. With 0 goals scored in their first 2 matches of the tournament, was Brazil's legendary golden era finally fading? Scotland proved that with grit, organization, and a world-class goalkeeper, even the mightiest teams could be neutralized. And hopefully, this explainer has proven to you that a 0-0 draw doesn't mean a boring game. Sometimes it contains the most incredible, heart-stopping narrative of all. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive, and we'll catch you in the next one.